Thanks, Stefan. It's seem to be doing this quite a lot lately. It's very good to have you here at something that is going to be both transformational for Airbus and transformational for TAP Air Portugal, which is the first delivery today of the A330-900. What that does for Airbus is once more puts the new generation family and makes it even more complete, as now it will be delivered to TAP Air Portugal and give us more of that family from 100 to 600 seats, all offering comfort, profitability and commonality, because that's what Airbus is all about, and commonality is a big part of that story. If we look at where we are now with the new generation twin aisle family, some of you were here 3 weeks ago when the 330-800 took to the skies for the first time. We've now got the 900 that will be having an entry into service very soon. 350-900, one of the best entries into service that we've ever seen for a wide-body airliner anywhere. And the 350-1000, gradually building up the numbers now in service. One family, all offering 25% less fuel burn than the previous generation aircraft. So we're comparing to things like 777s and 767s. 4 aircraft. They're optimally sized, but why are they optimally sized? They're optimally sized so that an airline, our portfolio, will match what an airline is looking for. They're looking for a certain size of aircraft. We want to make sure we have one as close to that as possible. And having 4 aircraft here, equally spaced, means that we end up having the perfect portfolio for airlines to then be able to make their decisions and their selection, which of course will be helped with the fact that they can all have the same pilots. We share common type rating, 330-350, which means that you need a limited amount of training because so much is familiar to you because you've been in one of the other airplanes before. So pilots can fit in really easily there, and that's something we've been doing for over 20 years now. And of course the passenger experience with the airspace cabin, and that's something I'll talk about later. So what is a NEO? Well, I think it says it pretty well in the title up there. It's a new engine, it's a new wing, and it's new generation performance. It gets that 25% lower fuel burn per seat because of a new high bypass engine, the Trent 7000. It gets it because of a new high span wing. It gets it because we apply A350 technologies and A350 design methods. And then also it gets it because of efficiency from the airspace cabin, which you'll actually see on the aeroplane here. So, the wing. We have a new wing. That wing is a reshaped slat 1, composite belly fairings, lots of new technology, and for the first time ever, the 330 wing envisaged in a full 3D design system adopted from the 350. It's got a higher wingspan than the 330 by about 4 meters. That means we also get a more efficient wing than the A330 had previously. And of course it's also, as it happens, 4 meters longer than that wing on the 787. We have a great cabin. And if you look at this picture, it's actually a little bit of a trick. Because actually, in fact, there's 2 aeroplanes here. 350 and A330. You may remember that we got an absolutely incredible reaction from the public in particular on the A350. And we thought, hey, we're doing a new airplane. Let's do a new cabin. Let's make that cabin look like the 350. Let's give passengers the same experience on a 330 as they get on a 350. So we have a consistent design, we have the same passenger experience, and we make sure that we have the most comfortable and we have the quietest cabins going. What that does in terms of the passenger is give them a great product, but what it does for the airlines is it gives them a better canvas to paint their product and their branding on than we've ever been able to offer before on an A330. If you look at what we've got things like the welcome effect, which you'll see on the aircraft today. We've got larger bins on the side bins, on the lateral bins down the side of the aircraft. We can get in these bins, we say they're 66% larger. Instead of three bags per 4-frame bin, we now get 5 bags because we put them in a slightly different way. What that means though is that for an aircraft, we can get somewhere between 70 and 90 more carry-on bags on the side bins. And that's a massive amount of space and is more adapted to the way that people travel today than perhaps the 330 was in the past. New lavatories, new look and feel. Really an all-new interior. In terms of the aircraft, we also have about the same fuel burn per trip as the 787. Why? Because we've got the same engine. Introduced Trent XWB technology. It's on the Trent 1000 TEN and it's also on the Trent 7000. So that gives us both new generation SFC, specific fuel consumption. We've got better aerodynamics. We've got that high span wing. We have an uncompromised wing design from an aerodynamic point of view. And of course, new cabin efficiency enablers that will always give us more seats than the 787. So how does that happen? Well, if you look at today's 787 with the Trent 1000 TN, we have a very similar contribution to fuel burn per trip when we look at the engines. Yes, our aeroplane does weigh a little bit more. We know that. But we have a more efficient wing by about 4%. That then means we're about 1% better per trip. Then if we start to put that into the way we look in terms of the seating arrangements that we can have and the choice that we offer airlines, we can be up to 7% better fuel per seat. Now, the 787 can't go from 9 abreast to 10 abreast like we can go from 8 to 9 abreast to get extra efficiency. It made that move in around about 2005, 2006, when it, dare I say, started to fail in its mission to kill the A330. But lower fuel burn per seat than a 787. We have a very, very, very efficient aircraft here. So, about a year ago, we had the first flight of the aircraft in the mid-October 2017. That then went into a flight test program that was very challenging, particularly from the weather. We had all sorts of weird weather. Canada was too warm in the winter. Spain was too wet. So everything that the weather could throw at it, it kind of did. But we got that flight test program and included, of course, quite a bit of testing with our both our customer and also our really what we view now as our partners at TAP Air Portugal, particularly the route proving, which is also called function and reliability testing. It's there to check that everything works, that's the function bit, and to check that it works well and reliably, that's the reliability bit. And that involved a lot of flying. First of all, first down to Lisbon, then down to Latin America and Miami, then into Asia, doing some ETOP sectors as well, and then over the Atlantic to both Chicago and Atlanta, and then finishing with a little trip up to the Arctic. All testing the cabin as well with the new airspace cabin on board and ensuring that really we had an aircraft that was then ready to be certificated, which it was on the 26th of September 2018. We got our EASA certification. And also one of the interesting things is we are also now the first aircraft ever to be certificated to the new ICAO Chapter 14 noise standard, which is more strict than the Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 before, and we're the first aircraft ever to be certificated to Chapter 14. Now, some people have talked about the market for it, and I'm going to take you into this chart here. What it shows is it shows the date when the deliveries of an A330 reach 20 years of age. So a 1992 aircraft will be 20 years in 2012. Now if you look at the curve here of deliveries, you'll see that it's a little bit odd compared to most of those that you'll see for most aircraft. And I'm going to step out here and just talk about it. If you look at it, what happens most time is you've got a big peak at the start and then you've got a big long tail. This is exactly the reverse. And that's our prime market. Our prime market for the A330neo is to replace the most popular twin-aisle aircraft there is. And what do I mean by most popular? I mean the one with the most operators. We're somewhere around about 130 operators worldwide now. There's nothing even approaching, I think we're just approaching half of that for some other types. But that's it, there's nothing near the A330. So what we see is that we have actually positioned the EIS of this aircraft really well, just ahead of that market. So all we're going to see now is more and more people starting to look at retiring these aircraft, somewhere 23, 25 years, and then gradually that 330neo building up. We have a massive market out there, but we don't just want the 330 market, we want more. We want to replace 767s, and we also want to replace 777. 200 ERs and A340-300s on a one-to-one basis as well. If you want to grow from these aircraft, Airbus has that perfect portfolio. That's the 350-900. It's a bigger aeroplane, therefore you can grow into it. So you look at it, we've got the right aircraft everywhere for the airlines of the world. So what was the best thing ever to happen to the 330? The best thing was the launch of the 787 14 years ago. Coincidentally, around about the same time as my kids were born. They were about that big then, they were about 50 centimetres. They're now my height. So yeah, it was a really, really long time ago now. And like any teenager, it's growing, it's understanding things. But you know what? It was, as a parent, it feels like it's forever. The 330neo was only launched 4 years ago. And I think it's very interesting to see that the 787 really failed in its mission. And it failed in its mission, which was to kill the A330. It was the best thing ever to happen. Why? Because we've sold 4 times the number of aircraft after it was launched than we did before. It's as simple as that. If we look at the position since 2014 and over the last 4 years, you'll see that we're around about 419 versus 415. In fact, if we take out the 330, the 787-10, that cuts another 40 off that total there on the 787. So really, we've outsold the aircraft. You may also notice that we've been selling current 330s as well. Well, the big thing there is, remember, we had to bridge that gap between the production of the 330 to the production of the 330neo. So now the company's we're fully selling 330neos, and that's what we're all engaged on now. Now, what can we say for the 330 actually building in the future, shall we say? Well, let's just look at the way the 330 operates itself. The 330 is a very versatile aircraft. You can see that we have a versatility in capacity, going from 200 seats up to 440 seats, which are flying, for instance, for Line Air. If you look at the average sectors there, we're down at under 1,000 miles, but we're also up at over 4,000 miles. In other words, what does a 330 do? It does anything. What the big difference here that the 330neo can bring, apart from the better cabin, is the fact that it has much, much better economics. So we'll see the fact that 330neo will do what this 330 does, but it will do it much, much better. In addition to that, it will also have some extra range, so we'll probably see that average sector there gradually creeping up as well. And we're going to introduce a bit more range. We're going to introduce a 251-ton version, and that means about 1,500 miles more than today's typical aircraft. So a typical 330-300 today can have 235-ton takeoff weight and a range of around about 5,700 nautical miles. A 330-200, 238-ton takeoff weight and about 6,850 nautical miles. What we'll do with the 330neo at 251 tons is bring up to 1,500 miles more range. So you can see that we're going to push the range envelope in terms of going further. But the other thing, remember, you saw in that chart was that the 330 can also fly right down there in shorter sectors as well. In fact, what we see that A330 and A320 family have about 72 airlines that operate both, which is about getting on for 70% of A330 operators. And if you look at the big wide bodies and the big single aisle aircraft, and the smaller wide bodies, you'll see that between them, for distant routes of under 10 hours flight time, in 2008 they shared about 42% of the market there. 321, just 321 and 330 on our side. If you look at the Boeing side, it's a bit more complicated. There's 737-900, 757, 767 and 777. Now let's go forward 10 years to 2017. What we can see is that our market share, our frequency share, has gone up to 62%. And we also know that 50 airlines operate A321 and A321 and A330 together. And about 30 of these airlines operate them on the same routes, exactly the same routes on a day-to-day basis. And that's Airbus commonality in action. If you look at the other side, what you'll see is there's now another type added. So it's getting to become an awfully complicated picture there, with the addition of the 787 as well. So we believe that for that short to medium haul sector, we really do have the best partnership in terms of 330-800, 330-900 and 321neo, all offering very much the same. State-of-the-art aerodynamics, new engines, new structure, advanced systems, new cabins, it's all there. And in TAP, we see someone doing exactly that. We saw someone who's going to operate 321s, they're going to operate 330s, and they're going to have routes where they'll be operating both. In other words, both in practice and in theory, 321 and 330, 321neo and 330 will work together. And if you look at where TAP is going on in its journey, it's going to be 320neo, 321neo and 330-900 working in partnership, working towards their new future with the Airbus Neo aircraft. So in conclusion, well, 330neo, what is it? It's a new generation A330 built on the technology from the A350XWB. It's better aerodynamics and unit fuel burn than the 787. The EIS time is timed really well for that principal market, the 330 replacement market. But as I said, we're being a bit greedy maybe because we want all these 760s and 777s as well for ourselves, for the Neo. And also, we believe that we have the right aircraft to take TAP into a new future with the 330neo and 321neo. Thank you very much.